Emerging copper company Copper 360 will deploy a cluster mining model at its Northern Cape operation. Now, this is set to update its predecessor, Okiep Copper Company's high-yielding model. Now, a cluster strategy will enable the company to mine at various locations with a centralized processing facility. Cluster mining also offers environmental benefits. Copper 360 Chairperson Shirley Hayes designed the 21st century modeling for cluster mining in the area, and she joins us for the very latest this morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Shirley. Maybe let's start with why copper mining, or the metal rather, of the future, and perhaps even the new gold. What would you say around that?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. You're right, copper truly is the metal of the future. You must understand the world is currently in an energy crisis, and it is a result of factors like the increasing energy demand, climate change, old power grids that are starting to collapse in developing countries. Additionally, geopolitical conflicts such as Russia's control over gas supplies impact global energy markets. Addressing these energy crises requires improving energy efficiencies, moving towards renewable energy sources, and investing in sustainable energy infrastructure. So we are indeed on the brink of the next revolution, the electrical revolution, which is building on the legacy of the industrial revolution, and while addressing some of its negative impacts as well, such as environmental pollution. And like the industrial revolution, it will transform society, economy, and technology in profound ways, and it will shape our lives in the future. So yes, it indeed is the metal of the future.
Do you think that there's enough copper in the world to satisfy the demands or the growing demands of the new economies that are starting to see all the benefits that you've just described?
That is a very important question, whether there is enough copper in the world to satisfy the demands of the new economy. And that is a very complex question. You see, copper is an infinite resource, and there are concerns that the increasing demand for power, particularly in emerging markets, could totally outstrip supply in the long term. However, there are also significant copper reserves around the world, and new mining technologies and exploration methods that will surely help to identify near copper deposits. But, and this is a big but, continued investment in exploration and mining technology and sustainable practices will be crucial to ensure a stable supply of copper in the future. It takes about 40 years from prospecting to mining. And to put the copper demand in perspective, over the next 27 years, the world will need the volume of copper produced over the last 30,000 years. It's immense, but we can make it.
So, indeed you can, and you're going back to the heart of South Africa's copper reserves. Perhaps share a short history of copper in the area and why this is so symbolic to the project that you're discussing with us this morning.
It's a nice way of putting it. True. We are going back to the heart of South Africa's copper reserves. I'll never forget that. Thank you for that. But it's also the place where the first mining started in South Africa. The Northern Cape has got a very rich history of copper. The first copper was discovered by the Khoi people about 3,000 years, even before Simon van der Stel set up his expedition to Namaqualand Springbok to explore copper in the region in 1685. That's a long, long time ago. An extensive mining of copper began in the 1850s, making it the first mineral boom in the country. 32 new mines opened during the 1850s, and at the turn of the century, the area was known as the richest copper mining district in the world. The two companies then, the Okiep Copper Company and Cape Copper Company, consolidate most of the area, and they joined under Newmont to form the famous Okiep Copper Company in 1937. And the Okiep Copper Company, known as OCC, went through various owners, mining, and economic cycles, and eventually ceased mining in 2005.
So That particular project, where you've just described the history there, you speak about cluster mining, and there is different forms of cluster mining that currently exist. But what form of the cluster mining does this particular project take on, and what exactly is cluster mining for those watching and who may not be familiar with this form?
Cluster mining model is one we have several mines that feeds into one single central process facility. And it has several benefits, one of which is that the smaller ore bodies that could not justify a plant on its own are now all economic viable. And that surely adds to your balance sheet. Also, it's flexible in allowing a plug-and-play model where you can choose between developing and or mining ore bodies at the same time, different times, without actually influencing the production. And because you only need one central process facility and one tailings facility, and not a duplication of infrastructure at every mine, it lowers capital and operating expenditure tremendously. Yes, we do have additional trucking costs, but they are far less than all the other infrastructure you have to build. And anyway, we plan to go electrical with that being available and viable. But the biggest advantage, though, with that is that you have processing focus and processing expertise concentrating on one area. I must say it's not my model. It's this model. It's not new. It's an actual replica of the old Okiep Copper Company. The Northern Cape, fortunately, allows for that. It's like a copper country on its own, with its various ore bodies in very, very close proximity. And the reason they were so successful was because of that. I mean, they paid the highest dividend on the New York Stock Exchange during the 60s for that period.
Very interesting insights, and thank you very much for joining us this morning, Shirley. She's Shirley Hayes, who's Copper 360 chair, joining us this morning to speak about an important project and the opportunities that copper mining offers for South Africa and the rest of the world.